Let's learn how to use Modular function. First, look at Configurator window where you could load pre-created garment module. You can see the Configurator window by clicking on the window bar on the left side of the screen. The topmost tab has a default category called Blocks. You could find folders within that category. If you double-click a folder, you can check other folders in that folder. When you open the jacket folder, you can see the jacket modules that are the module structure in the folder. Double-click the double module to open it. When you open the module, it will create a new costume, so a pop-up will appear asking if you want to save or delete the existing costume. When you open a module, the structure of the module is displayed in the 2D pattern window. In the Configurator window, several compatible blocks appear in the module. If you double-click a block, the corresponding block is displayed in the 2D and 3D windows. In the 2D window, the corresponding pattern is placed in the block box of the block within the module structure. Double-click other blocks to complete the costume. Let's simulate the garment. All patterns are well connected and simulated. If you check the seams, you can see that the blocks are sewn automatically. The purpose of the block function is to automatically sew the block pattern so that various costumes can be produced in a short time. Let's try another module structure. Open the short module in the shirt folder. When you open a module, pop-up will appear whether you want to save or delete existing clothes like before. When opening short file, you can check the module structure of the module in the 2D window. In the 3D window, you can check the block files in the module. Create a shirt using block files. First, I will select the color, and then I will select the front, back, and sleeve blocks. Simulate garment after selecting blocks. Let's replace the sleeve pattern with another block. And change collar pattern. Now let's add a category tab to the Configurator window. If you click the plus button on the right side of the window, the Category Edition window appears. If you select the desired folder here, it will be added to the Category tab. To delete a category, click the X button on the right of the Category tab. You could also rest category. If you click on the Reset arrow button on the right side of the window, all the tabs except the default Category tab are deleted. In the Category tab, there is an Update button on the right side and a Display button to change the view mode. Let's create blocks using the module structure. First, move to Module Mode to create a block. To learn about modular mode, let's open the basic costume in the library. Since we will only use the top outfit, we will delete the bottom pattern and lip patterns. Press the Modular Template Presets button in the Block Editor window at the top of the 2D Pattern window to load the module structure. You will see a window to select the module structure, and let's select the basic module of the basic t-shirt. When a module is selected, the block boxes of the corresponding module are displayed in the 2D window. Let's put the pattern in the block box. First, select the pattern and drag it to the top of the block box. The block box will be highlighted in sky blue. If you drag and drop the pattern will be assigned to the highlighted block box. When assigning, a warning pop-up appears. Since the current block pattern does not apply symmetric sewing, the existing symmetric pattern with sewing is replaced with the symmetric pattern state. Once you have all the patterns in the block box, let's try sewing. Currently, there are patterns and sewing lines. If you select the Show Modular Sewing or Show Pattern Sewing tool from the 2D toolbar, you can see the sewing lines between the block boxes. Basically, the sewing lines of a block box are not displayed, but when you click on the outline of the block box with the Edit Sewing tool after selecting the tool, you can see that the sewed lines are connected by a dotted line. Now delete the existing pattern outline sewing line to sew the pattern and block box. Block sewing is done by sewing patterns and block boxes instead of sewing patterns. Therefore, if the previously imported garment has been sewn between patterns, you should remove sewing lines and then sew the outline of the pattern with the outline of the block box. However, you can still use the sewing lines within block box. Once you have finished deleting the existing pattern sewing line, let's sew the patterns in block boxes. You could use straight sewing, free sewing tools for block sewing as you normally sew patterns. Please note, when you sew block box, you would sew by segment and could not start sewing line at the middle of the line. It is possible to sew one block box segment with several pattern lines, but you could not sew multiple block box segments at the same time. Block boxes can be sewn only one segment at a time. And you cannot sew multiple segments at once. Therefore, if the points of the block box are divided in this way, you could split the pattern or sew it by adding points. Let's sew the remaining blocks. You can use the Edit Sewing tool to view and modify seams. After sewing blocks and patterns, turn on the Show Modular Sewing or Show Pattern Sewing tool and, if the Edit Sewing tool is selected, you can see the sewing lines between the blocks and the pattern. Even if blocks and patterns are sewn, if you select the Edit Sewing tool with the Show Modular Sewing or Show Pattern Sewing tool turned off, the patterns and patterns will be displayed as if they were sewn. This makes it easier for users to see where the patterns in the block are sewn because the pattern block pattern is connected by a sewing line. Now let's make the existing medieval costume into a block file using the module structure. First, I will load the garment to be used as a block. I will create a shirt block, so we'll delete unwanted patterns. Add a new test category to the configurator. In the block editor window, press the Modular Template Presets button to load the shirt module. Because the pattern pieces are large, I will relocate block boxes. Block boxes can be selected or moved with the Transform Pattern tool. Select the pattern and drag and drop into the block box. Let's simulate in this state. Since we have not yet sewn between the pattern and the block box, the patterns are not sewn and all are dropped. Undo, Ctrl-Z, and sew block box and pattern. When sewing one block box line in multiple patterns, sew the block box and press the Shift key to use one end sewing tool. Turn off Show Modular Sewing or Show Pattern Sewing tool. Check the sewing lines between pattern outlines. Simulate the garment after making sure that the clothes are well connected. Now let's save the modulated patterns as blocks. Open the Configurator window to check the saved pattern. Let's see how to open and save a block file in the block editor window. Scroll the bottom part of the window to see all the block boxes in the module. If you click once on the block box to select it, only the corresponding block box will be highlighted in the 2D window. Remaining block boxes are dimmed. In the 3D window, all the patterns except the pattern in the selected block box are freeze. This is because the outlines of the patterns connected to each other must match when saving blocks. To deselect a block box, click the selected block box one more time. Now let's save the block boxes one by one. When you select a block box to save a color pattern as a block, the Open and Save buttons are displayed at the top. The Open and Save button is also displayed when you mouse over a block box. When you click the Save button, a window for setting the save path appears. The block file is saved as a .zblc file. After selecting the test folder, press OK to save the block file in the path. When saving, you can choose whether to use the block thumbnail as a default or register the user file. Click the Update button in the configurator to check the saved blocks. You can check the saved blocks in module images. Now let's save other blocks as well. Let's modify the pattern and save it as another block file. I will save the short sleeves deformed into long sleeve. Deform the front and rear body plates and save. Deform sleeves and save. Once the block has been saved, go into simulation mode and use the saved block files. Double-click the saved block file in the configurator and simulate it to see if the garment is completed.